The hydraulic line on crane 2 blew at exactly 9:47 a.m., spraying pressurized fluid across section 4 like a fire hose gone wild. I was 50 yards away checking concrete temperature readings when I heard Eddie Martinez yell, "Shut it down." The crane operator hit the emergency stop, but not before 800 psi of hydraulic fluid painted the freshly poured foundation in a rainbow of industrial oil. That's when my phone buzzed. Text from Vincent Torres, my site director, Dale. "We're promoting Brandon Cooper to project supervisor instead of you. He brings fresh analytical approach." Announcement at 3 p.m. No explanation, no meeting, just a text message after 23 years of keeping bridges standing and crews safe. I'm Dale Patterson, 47 years old, and I've been working construction since I got out of the Army Corps of Engineers at 24. Started with a hard hat and a toolbox, learned everything from the ground up. The concrete under my boots felt different now, like a foundation starting to settle wrong, especially with hydraulic fluid seeping into the aggregate mix we'd just spent 6 hours placing. Vincent was standing near the crane operator station, coffee in hand, talking to Brandon like he just solved our load distribution problems. Brandon had his MBA degree and a smile that looked good in budget meetings. What he didn't have was any idea how to actually manage a construction site. I'd been training him for 4 months, showing him the safety protocols I developed, the crew management systems that kept our injury rate at 0, the supplier relationships I'd built over 2 decades. He took notes, asked smart questions, and apparently decided my job looked better than his. The hydraulic failure wasn't random. I'd been tracking pressure variations in that line for 3 weeks, noting temperature spikes during peak load operations. Standard procedure called for replacement at 5,000 operating hours. Experience said this particular crane needed service at 4,200 hours because of the way our crews ran continuous pours. I'd submitted 3 maintenance requests. Brandon had denied them all, citing cost optimization and data-driven maintenance scheduling. When I reached them, Vincent handed me an envelope. "Thanks for mentoring Brandon," he said. "He's really absorbed your systematic approach. My systematic approach, that's what we were calling it now." I opened the envelope while they watched. Inside was a performance review and a lateral transfer to senior technical advisor. Same pay, less authority, and a trailer office instead of the main site office. They wanted me to train my replacement and then step aside quietly. I folded the papers and put them in my vest pocket. "When does this take effect?" Monday, Vincent said. "Brandon's got some exciting efficiency projects lined up." Efficiency projects using the safety documentation I'd spent years developing. The crew scheduling that kept our timeline 2 weeks ahead, the equipment maintenance protocols that prevented the kind of accidents we were looking at right now. The hydraulic spill would cost us 8 hours of cleanup, environmental reporting, and concrete replacement. The kind of preventable failure that happens when you ignore institutional knowledge in favor of spreadsheet management. My wife Nancy had been expecting this promotion. We talked about it over dinner for months. The extra money would help with Sarah's engineering degree and finally pay off the house early. Now I'd have to explain why 23 years of keeping people safe wasn't enough. But here's what they didn't know. For the past 6 months, I'd been having conversations with Carl Wilson, who runs a family construction operation about 30 miles south called Wilson Contracting. Started as vendor meetings, turned into something more. Carl appreciated old-school reliability over spreadsheet projections. That afternoon, I cleaned out my office. 23 years of documentation, supplier contacts, safety improvements, and crew management guides went into boxes. Not because I was bitter, because it was mine. Developed on my own time with my own experience. Never formally documented in company systems. The preventive maintenance schedules I'd created. Personal notes based on watching equipment fail. The supplier relationships that got us priority delivery and bulk pricing built through handshakes and keeping promises. The safety protocols that transformed our incident ratings, trial and error from decades of protecting crews. I left copies of the official procedures, but the real knowledge, the experience that made those procedures work, that walked out with me. The pressure specifications for our elevation and humidity conditions. The concrete pour timing adjustments for temperature variations. The crew rotation patterns that prevented fatigue-related accidents. All of it lived in my head, not in their databases. Monday morning, Brandon moved into my office. New nameplate, fresh whiteboard, covered in MBA buzzwords like operational optimization and data-driven safety metrics. He called an all-hands meeting to introduce his vision. "We're going to revolutionize our approach," he announced. Dale built a solid foundation, but it's time to move beyond traditional methods and embrace innovation. The crew foreman looked at each other. Eddie Martinez, who'd worked with me for 14 years, just shook his head. These guys knew the difference between theory and reality. They'd seen the hydraulic failure on Friday, knew it could have been prevented with proper maintenance scheduling. Now they were being told that data-driven efficiency would prevent future problems. By Wednesday, the second problem started. Crane 3 went down for what should have been routine hydraulic maintenance. But the documentation Brandon was following didn't include the specific pressure settings for our particular setup. Standard procedure said 200-800 psi. Experience said 2,650 for our elevation and temperature conditions, the same knowledge that could have prevented Friday's blowout. They pressurized to 2,800. Seal blew within 4 hours. 6-hour production delay while they waited for replacement parts. Thursday brought another issue. Our primary concrete supplier, Rodriguez Materials, needed to discuss delivery schedules. Brandon scheduled a formal meeting with contracts and presentations. What he didn't know was that Rodriguez had been flexible with us for years because of personal relationships. Pete Rodriguez and I went way back. We'd worked through supply shortages, weather delays, and quality issues with handshake agreements. Pete called me directly, "Dale, what's going on over there? This new guy wants to renegotiate everything, says he's optimizing vendor relationships." I told him I wasn't involved anymore. He said Rodriguez would honor existing contracts but wouldn't be extending any special accommodations going forward. No more priority deliveries. No more bulk discount pricing. Everything by the book. By the second week, the cracks were showing. Project efficiency dropped 18%. Equipment downtime increased because they were using generic procedures instead of equipment-specific protocols. 2 suppliers stopped offering preferred pricing. Eddie started texting me updates, not because I asked, but because he was watching 23 years of systems work fall apart in real time. He's got consultants coming in. He wrote going to analyze our processes and recommend improvements. The same processes I'd built through years of trial and error. Now they'd pay consultants $250 an hour to tell them what they already had. Meanwhile, I was settling in at Wilson Contracting. Carl's operation was smaller but smarter. Family-owned, 3 generations of building quality infrastructure without the corporate nonsense. When I explained what I could bring to their operation, Carl didn't ask for presentations or data projections. "Show me," he said. I spent 2 weeks analyzing their workflow, identified bottlenecks they'd been working around for years, proposed modifications to their equipment maintenance program, suggested supplier consolidation that could cut material costs 15%. Carl gave me free rein. "You've been doing this longer than my boy's been alive. Make it work." And it did work. Within a month, we'd improved their project efficiency 14%, cut equipment downtime by 40%, streamlined their supply chain so materials arrived when needed, not when convenient for suppliers. The best part, Carl offered equity, not just a job, but ownership stake in improvements I created. After spending 23 years making other people wealthy with my expertise, someone finally wanted to share the upside. Back at my old site, things kept deteriorating. The consultants finished their analysis and recommended implementing optimized safety management protocols. Basically, they reverse-engineered my old systems, gave them fancy names, and charged $120,000 for the privilege. But implementation was a disaster. The consultants understood theory, not application. Equipment that needed specific handling got generic treatment. Suppliers that required personal relationships got form letters. Eddie's updates got more frequent. Second crane failure this month. Vincent's looking stressed. Brandon's blaming legacy equipment and inherited inefficiencies. That's what they were calling 23 years of keeping that site running safely and profitably. The breaking point came during their 3rd month of consultant-driven improvements. Section 4 foundation pour went completely wrong. Not routine problems, but catastrophic concrete failure that should have been prevented by proper temperature monitoring. The kind I developed specifically to catch early warning signs, but Brandon's team was following consultant recommendations, not real-world experience. They missed the temperature differential between the ambient air and the concrete mix, ignored the setting time variations caused by our specific aggregate blend, pushed the pour past safe parameters because the data said it was within acceptable ranges. What the data didn't account for was the microclimate created by our site's elevation and the way morning fog affected curing rates. The concrete didn't set properly. Structural integrity compromised across 400 square feet of foundation. 18-hour delay, emergency concrete removal, overtime crews working through the weekend. Customer penalty clauses that triggered contract reviews. The kind of cascading failure that happens when you replace institutional knowledge with theoretical frameworks. But it got worse. During the emergency removal, they discovered the contamination from the hydraulic spill I'd warned them about. The oil had penetrated deeper into the aggregate than anyone realized, creating weak points throughout the affected section. What should have been a simple temperature monitoring issue became a complete structural redesign. The state inspector showed up Tuesday morning. OSHA followed Wednesday. Both agencies wanted to know why proper safety protocols hadn't prevented the failure. Brandon's consultant-generated documentation looked impressive in binders, but couldn't answer basic questions about site-specific conditions and equipment limitations. Eddie texted me a photo from the site. Brandon's in Vincent's office getting screamed at. Word is the state inspector wants answers about equipment maintenance records. Problem was, the real maintenance knowledge had walked out with me. Their official documentation showed compliance, but missed the nuanced understanding that prevented failures. I didn't feel satisfaction looking at that picture. Just sadness. 23 years of building reliable systems destroyed because someone confused credentials with capability. At Wilson Contracting, we were hitting our stride. The efficiency improvements I'd implemented were generating serious profits. Carl was talking expansion. We'd landed 3 major contracts by underbidding competitors who couldn't match our cost structure. Our reputation for reliability was attracting customers from across the region. The breakthrough came when we bid on a state highway expansion project. $4.2 million contract, 18-month timeline. The kind of job that transforms a family business. Our bid came in 12% lower than the nearest competitor. Not because we cut corners, but because our operation actually worked efficiently. Dale. Carl said one afternoon, "How would you feel about taking over as operations manager? Full authority, equity stake, and we're setting up profit sharing for the crew supervisors." Operations manager, the same job I'd been denied at my old company, but with real authority and shared ownership at a place that valued results over politics. Nancy was thrilled when I told her that night. The salary increase was significant, but the equity stake was life-changing. For the first time in 23 years, my expertise would build wealth for our family instead of just generating profits for someone else's bottom line. "You deserve this," she said. 23 years of them taking you for granted. Now they'll see what they lost. The industry publication ran a feature story 6 months later. Wilson Contracting. Experience trumps theory in competitive construction. The article detailed our success using proven safety management principles and veteran leadership. My phone rang within hours of publication. Industry contacts, former colleagues, even competitors wanting to know how we'd achieved such dramatic improvements. The manufacturing community is small. Word travels fast when someone gets results consistently. But the call that meant the most came from Frank Rodriguez, my old mentor who'd retired 3 years ago. He'd seen the article and wanted to congratulate me. "Dale, I've been watching your career for 20 years, he said. "What you've built at Wilson is what construction used to be about. Competence, reliability, and respect for the work. You should be proud." Coming from Frank, that meant everything. He taught me that construction wasn't just about making things work, but about building something that lasted. Something you could be proud to put your name on. Frank had worked 35 years without a single safety violation, the kind of record you don't achieve through luck or shortcuts. Meanwhile, back at my old site, the situation was becoming desperate. The state investigation had expanded beyond the concrete failure to examine their entire safety management program. OSHA was conducting random equipment inspections, finding violations that proper maintenance would have prevented. Insurance premiums were skyrocketing as claims multiplied. Eddie's updates painted a picture of systematic collapse. 3rd equipment failure this month. They brought in another consulting firm to assess the damage from the first consulting firm's recommendations. Vincent's announcing early retirement next month. Brandon's been moved to assistant project coordinator, basically a glorified paperwork position. The domino effect was accelerating. When suppliers lose confidence, when insurance companies start asking questions, when state agencies flag your operation for ongoing monitoring, contracts disappear fast. Their next 3 scheduled projects were put out for rebid after clients expressed concerns about project completion capabilities. Carl was reading the industry news with interest. Competition's having a rough year, he observed. Might be opportunities for us to pick up some of their better people. I knew he was thinking about Eddie Martinez, who'd sent me a resume the week before. Good supervisors don't grow on trees, and Eddie had learned the systems I'd built over 14 years of working together. The breakthrough moment came when Thompson Industries called us directly. They'd terminated their contract with my old company early due to repeated delays and quality issues. Thompson's purchasing manager, someone I'd worked with for 8 years, wanted to discuss a major infrastructure project. Dale heard you're at Wilson now. We've got a bridge rehabilitation coming up. You interested in bidding? Just like that. A $3.6 million annual project walked out of my old company's portfolio and into ours. Not because we poached it, but because competence has a reputation that follows you wherever you go. When you've built trust over years, people remember. And when that trust walks out the door of one company, it doesn't disappear. It just relocates. The Thompson project was exactly the kind of complex work that showcased our strengths. Multiple phases, strict safety requirements, coordination with state transportation departments, the kind of job that separates real contractors from bid chasers. We'd be rehabilitating a 60-year-old bridge while maintaining traffic flow, working with weight restrictions and environmental constraints that required experienced judgment, not theoretical solutions. Within 8 months of joining Wilson, I was watching my old company struggle with problems I could solve with a single phone call. Equipment failures were constant because they'd abandoned the maintenance protocols that actually worked in favor of consultant-recommended optimization. Project delays were affecting customer relationships. They'd burned through 4 different consulting firms trying to solve problems that required institutional knowledge, not theoretical frameworks. The final straw came when their biggest customer, Morrison Construction Supply, terminated their long-term aggregate contract. Quality issues, delivery delays, and communication problems had eroded a relationship that took years to build. Morrison's operations manager called me the day after they canceled. "Dale, we heard about your move to Wilson. Any chance you'd be interested in handling our specialty concrete needs?" Morrison represented $1.8 million in annual business. Steady work, reliable payments, the kind of foundation that allows a company to take calculated risks on bigger projects. Their decision to follow me to Wilson wasn't just about personal relationships, though those mattered. It was about demonstrated competence over 2 decades. Then came the call I'd been expecting but dreading. Vincent's number showed up on my phone at 8:30 on a Thursday morning. "Dale, we need to talk. Can you come in today?" I could hear the desperation under his professional tone. Production problems were becoming cost overruns. Customer complaints were turning into contract reviews. The board was asking questions Vincent couldn't answer. "I've got 30 minutes at 2 p.m., I told him. When I walked into his office that afternoon, Vincent looked like he'd aged 5 years and 8 months. Brandon was there too, laptop open, looking defensive. The confident MBA smile had been replaced by the hollow stare of someone watching their theories collide with reality. "We're having some operational challenges," Vincent began. "Transition issues. We were hoping you might consult on some technical matters." Technical matters. They wanted to hire me back as a contractor to fix the problems created by replacing me. "What kind of technical matters?" I asked. Brandon jumped in. "We're experiencing some equipment reliability issues and supplier relationship complications. Your institutional knowledge could help us optimize our troubleshooting protocols." Institutional knowledge. Supplier relationship complications. He was describing the collapse of everything I'd built, using MBA language to avoid saying they'd made a mistake. "You want me to fix the problems you created by getting rid of me?" I said. Vincent shifted uncomfortably. "It's not that simple, Dale. We value your expertise. We're prepared to offer competitive consulting rates." "What rates? $200 an hour?" "Short-term basis." I almost laughed. They were willing to pay me $200 an hour to rebuild systems I'd maintained for years at my regular salary. And when I finished, Brandon would get the credit for turning around operational challenges. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I'm not available." Vincent's face went pale. "Dale, be reasonable. We can work something out." "I'm being reasonable," I said. "You decided you didn't need my expertise. Turns out you were wrong. That's not my problem anymore." I left that meeting knowing they were in real trouble. Equipment failures were increasing. Costs were climbing. Customer satisfaction was dropping. Their solution was to throw consulting dollars at problems that required experience, not theory. 3 weeks later, Eddie texted me with news that made everything clear. Brandon got fired today. Board meeting this morning. Vincent's announcing early retirement next month. The house of cards had finally collapsed. Not because I pushed it, but because I walked away with the foundation. At Wilson Contracting, we were preparing for our biggest expansion yet. The success we'd achieved in the first year had attracted attention from a major automotive consortium. They wanted to discuss a long-term partnership for infrastructure development that would triple our production capacity. Carl called me into his office the morning before the meeting. Dale, this is your show. You built what they want to buy. I want you to lead the negotiation. Leading negotiations, making strategic decisions, having my expertise recognized and rewarded. Everything I'd been denied at my old company was becoming reality at Wilson. The automotive consortium meeting went better than expected. They'd done their homework, researched our efficiency improvements, talked to our customers. What impressed them most wasn't our equipment or facilities, but our operational consistency. Your reliability metrics are exceptional, their lead negotiator said. 14 months of on-time delivery, 0 safety violations, industry-leading cost structure. How do you maintain that level of performance? Experience, I told him. We don't chase theories, we solve problems. They offered a 5-year partnership worth $15 million annually. Guaranteed volume, premium pricing, and profit-sharing incentives for meeting performance targets. The kind of deal that transforms a family business into an industry leader. That night, Nancy and I celebrated over dinner at the steakhouse where we'd had our first date 25 years ago. The equity stake I'd earned at Wilson was now worth serious money. Sarah's engineering degree was covered. The mortgage would be paid off within 2 years. Financial security I'd never imagined was suddenly within reach. You know what the best part is, Nancy said? It's not the money. It's seeing you respected for what you do instead of taken for granted. She was right. For 23 years, I'd been treated like a necessary expense instead of a valuable asset. Now, my expertise was generating wealth instead of just preventing problems. 2 months later, I got a call that brought everything full circle. The private equity firm that had bought my old company after its collapse wanted to meet. They'd heard about my track record at Wilson and were interested in hiring me to turn around their struggling acquisition. We understand you built the original systems. Their representative said, the facility has potential, but it needs experienced leadership. We're prepared to offer significant compensation for your expertise. They wanted to pay me $250,000 base salary plus performance bonuses to rebuild what I'd already built once. The irony was perfect. They destroyed my life's work, then offered to pay me premium rates to recreate it. I'm not interested. I told them that facility had its chance with my systems. They chose differently. Mr. Patterson, be practical. This could be very lucrative for you. It's not about money, I said. It's about respect. That place never valued what I brought to it. I'm not interested in going back to fix their mistakes. The industry trade publication ran a feature story 2 weeks later. Wilson Contracting experienced Trump's theory in competitive construction. The article detailed our success using proven safety management principles and veteran leadership. My phone rang within hours of publication. Industry contacts, former colleagues, even competitors wanting to know how we'd achieved such dramatic improvements. But the most important call came 3 months later. Carl walked into my office with news that changed everything again. Dale, I've been thinking about succession planning. My son's more interested in law school than construction. Would you consider becoming my partner? Full 50-50 ownership after a 3-year transition period. Partnership, not employment. Ownership, not just salary. After spending 23 years making other people wealthy with my expertise, someone wanted to share the equity I created. What would that look like? I asked. You buy in at current valuation, which your profit sharing has more than covered. We restructure as Wilson Patterson Construction. You take over day-to-day operations. I handle strategic planning and customer relationships. We build this thing together. Wilson Patterson Construction, my name on the building. My expertise creating wealth for my family instead of just preventing problems for someone else's company. That night, Nancy and I sat on our back porch talking about the offer. Sarah was finishing her junior year in engineering with no student loans. The mortgage would be paid off next year, 15 years early. What do you think? I asked her. I think you've earned this 10 times over, she said. 23 years of them taking you for granted, and now someone wants to make you an equal partner. That's what respect looks like. 4 months later, the sign went up. Wilson Patterson Construction. My name in letters 4 feet tall, visible from the interstate. 47 years old, and finally building something that belonged to me. Today, I'm sitting in my office at Wilson Patterson Construction reviewing expansion plans for our new highway division. On my desk is a framed photo of our Thompson Bridge project completion and a copy of the industry magazine cover. We've grown from 32 to 89 employees, maintaining our zero accident safety record across $18 million in annual contracts. My old site is now a shopping center. Target anchors one end, chain restaurants fill the middle. The foundation I maintained for 23 years now supports people buying groceries and eating lunch. But that's their story. Mine continues every morning at 6 a.m. when I walk through our equipment yard, checking machinery, talking to operators, solving problems that textbooks never mentioned, building something solid, something lasting, something I can put my name on with pride, because in the end, that's what construction is really about. Making things work, keeping promises, and respecting the people who do the actual work. And sometimes, if you're persistent enough, the respect comes back to you in ways that change everything. And the best part, when you build your reputation on solid ground, it doesn't just follow you, it multiplies everywhere you go.